Avatar: The Last Airbender was the most generic show on Nickelodeon. Or at least it almost was. Go back in time with me to July 19th, 2008. We had our Easy Bake Ovens, our Rubik's Cubes, and High School Musical was top dog when it came to kid movies. But Disney had a heavy competition from Nickelodeon's most popular animated series, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It almost didn't live up to the hype. Don't get me wrong, this show was amazing and had incredible writers, music, storylines. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen on Nickelodeon before. The finale alone was a huge event. It was a Saturday to remember, as the finale aired as a 2-hour, 4-part TV movie special that blew our collective preteen minds. By far, one of my favorite moments was Aang seizing control of the Avatar state and deciding to take away Fire Lord Ozai's bending instead of killing him. The conflict between Aang and Ozai is no doubt one of the most anticipated events in the entire series. Ozai was an evil tyrant, one of the worst father figures in TV history. He was one of the most powerful benders in the world. His build-up as the big bad of the series was unmatched. But I would argue Ozai wouldn't have been the Phoenix King Overlord he is today if it hadn't been for a single character in the series. That's right, the story's climactic conclusion would have played out entirely different if this single character wasn't introduced. Well, it just so happens that this was almost the case, and I'm here to talk about what happened during Avatar: The Last Airbender's development and how it would have completely altered one of the greatest animated series on Nickelodeon. In order to really understand the deep lore behind the epic conclusion of Aang's journey as the Avatar, we need to step back behind the curtain a bit to see how it all began. Our journey to master all 4 story elements begins with 2 college students, Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, who were studying at Rhode Island School of Design. These 2 friends had a love for franchises like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. They also had a desire to put a fresh new spin on the fantasy adventure genre. Already, we can kind of see the influences from classic villain archetypes like Sauron and Voldemort in Fire Lord Ozai. This, coupled with their influence of Japanese anime, kung fu, and the ideals of Eastern culture, paved a path towards crafting one of the most complex and emotional driving franchises ever. But like I said, it's a single character in this story that completely alters the trajectory of the series that started it all. Enter Eric Coleman. He was the vice president of animation development at Nickelodeon at a time where Nick was trying to establish themselves in the action-adventure genre. Eric was really well known and sat in on executive producer for shows like Wild Thornberrys, Doug, SpongeBob, Invader Zim, and later on shows like Gravity Falls and Star vs. the Forces of Evil. You get the picture. This guy knew how to put together a good animated show, and he was aware that Brian and Mike had been cooking up exactly what the network was looking to serve up. So Eric approached the 2 to put together a pitch for a show, and at first, the duo didn't have a lot to go off of, except for an illustration of a bald kid holding a shepherd's staff. After a month of planning though, the 2 college friends came back with the initial pitch for Atla. Side note, the original pitch had Aang accompanied by a robot cyborg monkey and a polar bear with arrows on its head. These robotic companions eventually became the Appa and Momo we love today. So here we are after a successful pitch. This trio began work developing the world, bending, the idea of the 4 nations, and the concept of having a finite end, which was a huge departure from Nickelodeon's usual long-running episodic formula in its existing cartoons. Nevertheless, they continued with their vision, and it's here where our hero character enters the scene. The one that changed it all, and who was never even supposed to exist in the first place. You see, in the original plan for the conclusion of The Last Airbender, Aang was always supposed to face off against the Fire Lord, and it was Ozai who was going to be the constant threat throughout the entire series for Aang to face off against at the end. It wasn't until Eric stepped in that our hero here began to take shape. See, the show was coming together, but there was one thing looming over the creators' heads. Here we have this giant threat, but no real way to drive home how horrible, how evil, how powerful this guy truly is. But then Eric, being like Uncle Iroh with his years of experience and infinite producer wisdom, gave the 2 some much needed advice. He suggested a character to actively pose a threat to Aang and his friends while simultaneously giving us an insight into the ruthlessness and power that the Fire Lord possessed through an endless pursuit of these heroes. Initially, the two took the idea and crafted a Fire Nation adult who would chase after the gang throughout the series, perhaps someone a little older like Uncle Iroh. Eric again had to step in with some sage advice. What if the pursuer was a teenager? Someone with enough energy and drive to achieve his goal. Eventually, we got everyone's favorite banished prince.
Hello, Zuko here.
Zuko's desire to gain his honor back and fulfill his destiny was just what the series needed to emphasize the looming threat. Without Zuko, we really don't get a look behind the curtain at how old Father Lord treats the nation, his armies, or his family. We never get to see the devastation the Fire Nation causes the Earth Kingdom and Water Tribes like we see in seasons 1 and 2. Without Zuko, there's no redemption for the Fire Nation with a new Fire Lord to aid the Avatar in restoring honor back to his nation and righting the wrongs that the Fire Nation has done throughout all of history. We would have never had the heart-wrenching story arc of Uncle Iroh guiding Zuko through a journey of self-discovery in the face of adversity. Zuko offers an in-depth and complex look into the antagonist of the series, which ultimately creates an emotionally compelling story. I believe without the Fire Nation Prince, we might not even be talking about Atlas still to this day, and seeing so many reboots and sequels to such a beloved franchise. And honestly, that speaks volumes about how Brian and Mike set up the series from the beginning. Wanting to create a compelling story with real and grounded characters that have emotional stakes is an accomplishment on its own. The idea that they were open to suggestions or changes, willing to push their ideas further, speaks volumes about them as creators. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, and honestly, I hope other creators, myself included, take a page out of Mike and Brian's book and make sure we take pride in the things that we make, because I truly believe it makes all the difference for you and the people who engage with what you make. And that's a wrap. Hey, if you like this video, leave a like and comment with an emoji that describes what kind of bender you are. And while you're at it, why not water whip that subscribe button so you don't miss any behind the scenes looks at your favorite shows and other media. If you like fantasy adventure stuff, I've got a video all about Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. It has some juicy details about how J.K. Rowling came up with some of the concepts for the story. So click the link in the video and I'll see you all over there.